Welcome to the Booze and Boobs podcast. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Katrina. Thanks for joining us today as we talk about some of our favorite horror movies.
We created this podcast as a way to give women more of a voice in horror. Men dominate most industries, especially film and television.
And that also goes for podcasts. We'll focus on female characters, motivations, or just expectations placed on women in horror, even if the situation is happening to a man.
We're excited you're here, and we hope you love it.
Now let's get to today's movie.
Well, we are back with a mid-October episode. We are going to try very hard to have 2 episodes out this month. I feel like because Katrina explicitly said what was coming out in our last episode, it makes me cling to a tighter deadline. Because to be quite honest, when you reminded me that we were recording tonight, I was like, oh. Then I was like, nope, we have to. We said it. People are going to hear it, so I have to do it. But
and it's already released.
Yeah, exactly. I literally was thinking, I was like, man, if we didn't publish When a Stranger Calls before, I could have gotten myself out of this. But I'll work into it. You guys, if you've listened at all, you know that I'm funny. So just let me make myself a joke here, and then I'll slide into character. But we are talking about Friday the 13th. If you are listening on our Patreon, you are getting this episode a few days early. But for the rest of you suckers, happy Friday the 13th.
Or not, depending on how you view this and if you're superstitious at all. So if you're superstitious, stay home. Don't do anything.
Yes. Let the episode accompany you on your quiet night in.
Yeah. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
I was going to be like, but I'm a little stitious. Yeah. So we're here. This Friday the 13th is actually one of the first movies we ever took notes on. It might have been the first movie we watched together, planning on doing the podcast, or close to it.
I think so. And I tried to reread my notes, and it was over a year ago, and I don't know her anymore. So I had to rewrite them.
Some of the notes were funny that were in the original spreadsheet link, but now we kind of have like a little system, so we had to redo it. I guess we can just go ahead and start with the summary and jump right into it. I don't have a huge tie to this movie. There's, the film nerd stuff that I do know about it, and I'll probably sprinkle in my little facts as I do. But this is not my favorite movie, so there's not a lot that I really plan on arguing about. I'm sure if you give me a minute, I'll find something.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you plan to argue or not. It's bound to happen.
Yeah. So, okay, quick summary for Friday the 13th. I feel like every horror podcast has covered this at one point or another. So pretty much everybody knows everything about it. If you've never watched it before, definitely watch it before you listen to our episode. But the very quick summary about this movie is Camp Crystal Lake is reopening after several years of being closed, after there were a few deaths and murders and accidents. And as this year the camp is trying to open, a mysterious unseen killer is murking Kevin Bacon and co. around the campsite in the period of one day before it's revealed who the killer is, why the killer is doing what they're doing, and then the end of that. Which I think it has a good ending. Honestly, the end of the movie it pays off for kind of how la-di-da-di-da the rest of it is for me.
Yeah, I think that this movie lacks suspense because nobody knows what's happening this whole time. But I do like the ending, how they kind of clean everything up and it becomes full circle. I do wish that they had a little I know that they opened up with a kill scene from the 1958, but it wasn't scary. So I wish they would have started with something creepier and then ended like they did.
Yeah, so Friday the 13th, we're talking about the original movie, of course. So this came out in 1983. This was, or no, it was 1980, wasn't it? 1980. Yes, it is. I don't know why I wrote 1983 for something. I must have
I don't know.
been looking at something. I was like, this movie did not come out in 1983. That does not make any sense with the point that I was trying to make because I do know about this movie. So Friday the 13th, starring Kevin Bacon and other people. Betsy Palmer, I think, is Mrs. Yes. Betsy Palmer is Mrs. Voorhees, who we will discuss. If you've seen Scream, then spoiler alert, she's the killer. She's probably the most notable actor of the time in the movie until now, 40 something years later. Now, all we know is 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine my surprise when I didn't see this movie until, I mean, not recently, but within the last handful of years. And I was like, what the hell is Kevin Bacon doing here?
For me, Kevin Bacon is nothing but Valentine from Tremors. So
he's a Scream king. So Friday the 13th, I have seen like some behind the scenes stuff. So for me, what I love most about Friday the 13th is all of the lore surrounding it. It came out really, really close to when Halloween came out because that was when we were like, oh, these like cheap, easy, quick slashers can be made and put out and they're going to make tons of money. And Sean Cunningham, the director, was right about that because this was like we're going to make this movie so fast. Let's go. The real hero of the Friday the 13th, I would say the franchise because it wouldn't have gone anywhere without him, is Tom Savini, the makeup artist. He also have worked on small budget films and indie films and things like that. So I have definitely been the person that was hired for one job and you end up wearing 10 other hats. He was the makeup artist. He did the special effects. He helped with some of like the story rewrites and he was also like doing stunts and stuff. So the part toward the end when the body flies in through the window in a nightgown, that is not Marcy or whatever her name is, Brenda. One of the two. Whatever the two. See, the names don't matter. It's like, whose line is it anyway? Everything's made up and the points don't matter. One of the bodies that's supposed to come in here, that's Tom Savini, the makeup artist, and he's great. So thanks, Tom, for making this movie and giving a real boost up to the slasher genre. I applaud you. Just like the little genie, little like blink applause. I'm sorry, I'm getting really distracted. My hair looks really great in the webcam right now. Katrina got me a ring light for my birthday, and so she made me set it up for this recording, and now I'm like, am I gorgeous? So the kids, they caught on to the ring light before I did, but now I'm going to be obsessed. This is going to be my whole personality. Do you want to go ahead and we can just jump right into it?
Let's do it.
Katrina's scene names are hilarious. Yet again, I'm very excited to be able to share them with you.
I missed doing this. I feel like I haven't done the scene names in a while, so
did you
I
not
was looking forward to this.
For When a Stranger Calls?
I did a few of them. Oh wait, well, I don't think I did them for. I don't know if I did. I don't remember. Feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, so Katrina and I, side note, we'll never start talking about this movie. We just got back from our cruise a few days ago. So Katrina and I, we spent like an entire week together. We're both alive. Southwest Airlines lost one of her bags that also had some of my stuff in it. So
Boo.
Yeah, I've never like talked shit about Southwest Airlines before, but it's been Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday night. It's been 4 days and I'm a little pissed off about it because if I don't get my sparkly makeup bag back, like I fucking love that thing. Mm-hmm. Also my watch charger, I guess.
Yes. I think I'm gonna have to check because like I don't remember if I put my round brush blow dryer in there or in my big one.
Well, have you unpacked?
I have, but I haven't looked for it. Like I haven't done my hair.
But when you
I haven't made the mental note. I haven't made the mental note of like, oh my God, I have this.
So Katrina and I got back very late this past Friday night. It's Monday night now. And we like took showers, we went right to Taco Bell. Came home.
First stop.
ate, took showers, went right to sleep. But then, like, yeah, like after you left and I had my stuff to do in the morning, the first thing I did was like unpack everything, do all my laundry. I folded and hung up my laundry. I don't know who I am. I'm a productive person, but
Impressive.
like,
I mean, I got here and then like I brought my bag in. I put all my dirty clothes like on the floor because I was looking for the gifts because I wanted to show Yuri her shoes. And then really that was all that was in there was like clothes, the shoes, and like the gifts. And so I did something and then my wife did my laundry for me because she's a very nice person. And that's all I found.
it must be nice to have a wife. I don't have a wife. I'm not a wife. Boo.
It's all good.
But yeah, that would be definitely something to add because you have a nice blow dry brush too.
Yeah, it was it's like a Chi brand.
Yeah, I like yours a lot more than my Revlon. My Revlon's like hella old, but like yours felt way better.
Hmm.
We are
Yeah.
coming for that $3,800 cash that Southwest gives if they lose your bag. So
I'm gonna need it.
for real.
I'm gonna need it. All
Um,
right, let's get into it. Why don't we?
I don't even remember why I was talking about.
With the cruise?
You know, something about I was gonna
If you
bring
can
up.
sense if you can sense any animosity between us, it's because we've spent too much time together.
Do you feel
Is that what you
animosity
were trying
toward
to
me?
say? No, I'm just kidding.
Do
My
you want
eye has
to?
been twitching nonstop.
I think you were still doing it like the very tail end of the cruise, but now like with losing the bag and then trying to like assimilate back to daily life, you were just like pre-stressed out about it, and that was very Capricorn of you.
Well, today, Yuri and I were, yesterday, Yuri and I were like driving around and doing something. And I was like, it feels like I never left. Like, I feel like I've been home for like a month. It feels like I never even went on the cruise. I'm like, what the heck?
I don't know. My like vertigo would say that I've been on the cruise. It was the first couple days I would just lay in bed and I'm like, ooh, I'm in a hammock right now, like swinging in the wind.
Well, see, and that's what I told you. It's like, I had mine on the boat. You got yours after.
Yeah. I've never like really had that before. So
The waters were very rough, I feel like.
yeah, I mean that's probably what we get for it being um like a fall cruise.
Mm, it
But
could be. The weather was great, though.
yeah, it was nice. We made friends on the cruise. So shout out to Sean and Amanda. They said that they were gonna also listen to the podcast. So what up, homies?
Now we will know. If you listen to this, send Rachel a message on Facebook. Code word baloney. That way we'll know if they want to listen to it or not. All right, so let's just get right into it. We open up Friday the 13th with a picture of the moon with like frogs and crickets, very peaceful in the background. And as the camera like pans over to a cabin, it tells us that we are at Camp Crystal Lake, 1958. We go into the cabin and there's like teenagers singing around like the fireplace, like kumbaya style. Which I'm like, honestly, no thank you. We and then we cut to like a point of view of somebody like opening either a cabin door or something, and we get the very classic creepy like music. And I think that kind of hints to us that that's like the killer's point of view. And then from this point of view, we see like girls sleeping in a cabin, and then we go back to all the kids singing, and Barry and Claudette make eyes at each other. And as soon as they're done, they're like, let's go to the barn. And so they go into the barn for their extracurricular activities. And Claudette says, does Mary Ann kiss as good as I do? Which, first of all, you shouldn't be kissing that boy if that's what you're going to be asking him.
Oh, come on. Have you been to summer camp?
Not when I was older, no.
I mean, it's all a competition.
I can see that. So they go up into like the barn loft, and while they're making out, we switch over to the killer's point of view again. And they like hop up, but they don't seem scared. They just seem like, oh shoot, I got caught. I'm in trouble. And as Barry is talking, he just gets stabbed right in the stomach. No words. And then we get Claudette is like scrambling and screaming, running away, pleading for her life. And then we get the slow-mo of her screaming, and they just like zoom in on her face. Obviously, she dies. Then we get the title screen of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, and then it turns into like a little mirror thing and it just shatters. Which the mirrors don't really have anything to do with like the overarching plot. But whatever. No. This movie is really just one big, yeah, sure. Like everything just happens. We're like, okay.
I think it's one of those like, why not? We could do that. And it just says, we get another like time stamp. It says Friday, June 13th, the present.
Also,
listen, bro,
hold on.
I don't know what the present is.
Well, okay, the present is 1980 because that's when this movie came out. Right. June 13th, that's Mary-Kate Ashley's birthday. So, nice. Just.
Were they born in 1980?
They were born in 1986. Although they did say in To Grandmother's House They Go, their characters were June 13th, 1987. But when I was a kid watching it, I was like, you guys are lying.
How dare they?
How dare those child actors tell a tale?
Their job. I titled this scene Listen to the Locals or You're Loco.
That's when I knew this was going to be good.
Because I'm like, listen, all the scary movies, when we have the context, you're like, just listen to the locals. If they say don't go, don't go. Have you seen The Old Ways?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, that's basically the whole movie is don't do what the locals tell you not to do.
Oh, okay. They know what's going on. So we've got Annie walking up in her little backpack thing, coming across a small town. She's got a hiking backpack with like a sleeping bag on top of it. She comes across a dog at a gas station and asks the dog for directions, which, I mean, he's very smart. He leads her right into the little cafe where she needs to go. So, good boy.
Did his job.
Yeah, she comes in there and she asks for directions to get up to Camp Crystal Lake, and then all of the old biddies that are at the cafe like swing around and look at her at the little bar, and they're like, "You mean Camp Blood?" And poor Annie, she doesn't know anything about it. She just says that she's going to work up there as a counselor, and she is warned to not go up there, but a truck driver is going to let her hitch a ride toward the camp. He's not going to drop her off there, but pretty close to it, which I think is weird. But yeah, sure. My fun fact for this scene is that the actor who plays the truck driver is the voice of Maurice from Beauty and the Beast. So my daughter, that's like, I can't get that out of my head. Every time I watch that movie now, I'm watching it because they have Annie, and I don't even remember the truck driver's name because who cares? They have a back and forth about the camp shouldn't be opened, and there were murders in 58. There was a kid that drowned in 57. When they tried to open the camp back again in 62, the water was bad. I don't even know what that means. Like, does that mean like their water reservoir? Does that mean the lake had like flesh-eating bacteria? I don't know what that means.
Usually it just means like not good algae. Like it can make you sick. Because like sometimes they tell us like we can't swim in the lake because there's like blue-green algae, which can make you sick if ingested or can give you like rashes.
Yeah, you know what that means. I'm a poor city girl. I don't know that.
Well, now you know.
And then the truck driver calls her a dumb kid, which is kind of funny because this girl, like, she's just like, like very much, she's gonna die kind of vibes. It is really interesting because I hold a lot of respect for Friday the 13th and Halloween and all of these like old movies that, you know, give us what modern horror is. But it's so interesting because they are so flat, really. then it's hard to dissect it a little bit because there's no nuance. It's just kids are dying. There's a murderer reveal. Final girl. The end. You know?
It's like, who's got a great scream? Okay, you're
me.
in.
Let me try. I'm just kidding.
No. Oh yeah, and then even before like she gets into the truck, like there's the town crazy who's like, it's got a death curse.
Ralph.
Yeah, and like throughout this whole movie, like I know it was made in 1980, but like the men are just gross because he's old, and I would say that these camp counselors are probably teenagers, early 20s. Like
the actor who plays like I think Brenda looks like she could very easily be like 30 years old, but I think the characters are supposed to be
like 19, 20,
like 22 might be the oldest I would allow them to be in my head.
Yeah.
But
well, and so this old guy's like, are all the girls gonna look as good as you? And I was like, just don't talk. Like if that's what you're gonna say, don't talk. But no, he drops her off halfway at like a cemetery, which I'm like, cool. At least it's a landmark, I guess.
Harbinger.
So then she decides she's gonna hitchhike the rest of the way, or hike or hitchhike if she gets picked up. Then we cut to a truck with like 3 of the counselors in it, and I think that it is Jack, which is Kevin Bacon. That's the only one we need to know.
Really? And it's not even that we need to know him for his character. We just are like, that's Kevin Bacon? Carry on. It's like, yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm fine with it. And I think it's Marcy and Ned, because Bill and Brenda are already there. So I think that's it. Yeah, Jack, Marcy, and Ned. Look at me go.
Their names don't matter, but
right. So everyone's
going to die.
They're in the truck, and Ned's like, "Do you think there's going to be other gorgeous women other than yourself here?" He just wants to kiss pretty women. He's
so gross. Like
I hate Ned.
This movie is really. Have you seen any more Friday the 13th movies, or have you only seen this one?
No, but I know, like, Jason is in the other ones. Like,
yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I haven't seen them all. I'm gonna watch them all, and I think I got up to like 5 maybe, and I was like, it was just miserable. Like I couldn't do it. So basically the plot of Friday the 13th is there are just people who don't matter at all. They get killed by, in the first one, Mrs. Voorhees, in the second, rest of them, Jason. Right. And then they just get progressively worse as you go along. There are some notable actors in a few of them, like number 4, I think, has Crispin Glover, the dad from Back to the Future. Corey Haim plays the little kid in it. So the final girl from the first one is in the second one. The final girl from the second one is in the third one. And then in the 4th, 5th, and maybe the 6th, don't quote me because it doesn't matter. I think you might have a couple reoccurring characters, but like they don't matter. They don't matter. Nothing matters.
The backstories don't matter. The relationships don't really matter. It's just stabby, it's crazy fight at the end. And
yeah, we just need to get them all in one spot, have a reason for them all to be gathered in one spot, and then get killed off one by one, and then reveal.
Yeah.
So a really great formula to have a starting off point, leaves a lot to be desired overall.
Yeah. Jack, Marcy, and Ned finally arrive to the camp, and when they pull up, the owner, Steve, is like chopping at a tree stump shirtless, like he's some kind of lumberjack. And I just felt like his whole point of this was that he wanted to get this tree stump out of there before the campers arrived. And I'm like, leave it to a man to be doing pointless shit outside while like the woman is inside cleaning and actually doing things that matter. Because Alice comes out and she's got like a mop bucket and a broom. I'm like, you're just fucking with the stump. Nobody's gonna care about that stump. It's like when a wife's like, oh, we're going to have a dinner party in like 3 hours, and he wants to go paint the mailbox.
Yes.
No, nobody's going to be looking at the fucking mailbox. Anyway, that's just something that I was like, it just annoyed me. Anyway, so they all help him push over the stump, whatever. And they all meet Alice and Steve. Alice is another counselor, but she's been with Steve in the past, so she's not new. Basically, he's like, oh, we got to get this ready for the campers. So he gives out assignments. They're all doing their thing. And Steve goes over to assist Alice in some really bad hammering that she's doing. And he's like admiring her artwork, which is of himself. And says, oh, you're very talented and pretty, and asks for another chance. Get out of here. But she agrees to stay till the end of the week because I don't think she wants to be there.
Yeah, because this is another thing. It's like, okay, the movie is trying to set up that some of these characters have relationships with each other.
Right.
Let me make it so clear. It doesn't matter.
No, like they don't even interact for basically the rest of the movie. Like Steve and Alice basically don't talk or have moments at all in this movie. So like, why are we giving them a relationship? They wrote it. That's why.
I guess because people in relationships die. So that's their take.
But if she was in a relationship, that would have meant that she had had sex and she should have died and did not follow the horror movie rules.
I'm gonna argue.
Of course you are.
I would just say that we can't say Alice doesn't follow the rules, give or take, because these are the movies that make the rules,
I guess if the rules were not established yet.
So by the time Scream comes around to lay out the rules, we've had several more movies beyond Halloween and Friday the 13th that abide by these unspoken rules.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's true. Like Marcy and Jack, they have sex, they die. Brenda and Ned don't have sex, but Ned is like very
flirting.
Flirting. What's the word? He's just like
annoying.
That, yes, but like he's gross and he's very like suggestive. And Brenda does get almost naked during Strip Monopoly, so you have those provocative. Yes, thank you. So we have that.
So Steve basically leaves in his Jeep to do whatever he's going to do. And then we cut over to Ned being a dickhead. And Brenda's at the archery range. She's trying to get it set up. And he shoots an arrow at the target she just put, which is like a foot away from her, which is a little bit of a foreshadowing-ish. But anyway, she laughs it off after being angry, but I'd be so fucking pissed off. This is just, I'm glad Ned dies. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, great call for the foreshadowing for sure. But Ned he's just so annoying.
He's literally the worst character.
I am not a happy-go-lucky kind of person. I am not the kind to like not take things seriously. I'm like, you're so annoying. Just stop. But this is why I don't have any friends. So this is why I have a podcast.
They can't talk back on the podcast. So this scene I titled Getaway Car just for Rachel.
I love it.
But we cut back to Annie, who is hitchhiking, and she is picked up by a Jeep who misses the turn. She gets very nervous, and honestly, good for Annie. She jumps out of the Jeep, which leads her into limping through the woods, being not really chased, because, horror movie characters don't run, apparently. They just briskly walk. And they still catch up. So, and this is the first time we kind of like see any part of the killer. We see feet, and I think we see like a flannel shirt, which really doesn't give us anything. But Annie is dead. No cook for the campers.
Well,
Um,
there won't be any campers either.
True that. No cook for the counselors either.
There won't be
But
any
we
cancelers either.
counselor. There you go. So we go back. The counselors are having fun, setting up the docks. We get a POV from the killer, you know, creeping on them through the trees. Like, God forbid they have like a good time.
Well,
And
they had a
then
good time, and that's why they're gonna die.
I just, I have to mention this part because I had to pause it to look at it because I don't know what, like, two of the counselors are laying on the ground and like Kevin Bacon is standing above them. And as it pans up, I'm like, does Kevin Bacon just have a boner right now? So I had to pause on it. And I'm like, is that an inhaler or is he just happy to see them? Because like it looks so funny. But I'm like, what is happening with Kevin Bacon's swimsuit right now? But Ned is stupid, pretends to drown so that he can kiss Brenda or one of the girls, and that just pissed me off.
Yeah,
And then
he
the
does like
next,
the Sandlot thing
basically,
where he
yeah,
fakes drowning.
way to assault people.
Next scene is awful. I actually skipped it when I was watching it because like it's terrible, but I'm sure if you see the movie, you know what it is. Alice goes into her cabin, she ends up finding a snake, she calls for help, and then everyone comes in and they're all like, "Where's the snake? Where's the snake?" And then somebody kills it. Fun, horrible fact is that was a real snake and they actually killed it. And it wasn't even like a movie animal. Like it was some dude who had a snake that they had him bring to set, and they didn't tell him that they were going to kill it. Like, so they just killed this guy's fucking pet.
And I'm so pissed off about that. Like,
It's
I
awful. Who the fuck thought that was a good idea?
and I've literally had pet snakes before, and if somebody did that, like I would have cried. And I think I read something that said sometimes people claim that you can hear the snake handler, like crying in the background because he didn't know that they were gonna kill his fucking snake. And I was so pissed off because it does nothing for the movie. Literally
No,
has no context added, anything.
no.
Other
It's
than
just
oh my god, there's a snake.
like, I
They're in the
mean,
woods.
yeah, there's a snake and stuff. And like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like, oh, like that the counselors like can band together and like help each other or something, but like, I don't even like it. Like, so I'm pretty sure I've probably told you this story, but like even when I was doing like makeup and stuff, like I had to do makeup on a dog to make it look like it got run over by a car. I was fucking bawling my eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was not okay because I had to paint a dog to look like it was dead. Like so
Yeah.
I don't like it at all anyway. But then like they really fucking did it. It's unforgivable.
Yeah.
So I skipped it. I was like, there's no point in even watching it. It happened. We're saying it for the podcast because if we didn't, then people would be like, oh, like you missed the part. So we said it. Fuck it. Moving on.
So now we are into the scene. Not so crazy, Ralph. So Brenda and Marcy are approached by a police officer, and Ned is doing a very offensive impersonation of a Native American person. Anyway, we're not going to go into it. It's fucking stupid. The police basically are saying that they're looking for Ralph, the town crazy, because he's been reported like he's been going on his rants and he's going to be up here. But then the officer is called back to town and he says, "We ain't going to stand for no weirdness out here." And I'm like, I don't exactly know what he's referring to, but
I wrote in my
sounds
notes.
homophobic.
I wrote in my notes, "We are the weirdos, Mister the Craft." Yeah, because Ned's just out there. He's in like
His
um
underwear
his
and
underwear and one of the Native American headdress things, and he was just looking around, and then the cop like that just shows up is very
yeah,
combative for no fucking reason.
he's real bad.
Because I don't even think that like this cop would have been annoyed at the cultural appropriation or anything because like that
No.
was more of the time. Context clue, gotta bring it up every episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's still gross though. But he just came up with a bad attitude. So whatever. But the rest of the counselors are like, no, like we haven't seen this guy. Like if we see him, we'll tell you. It's fine. Moving on.
And then we go into the kitchen where Alice opens the closet and finds Ralph and scares the shit out of her. And he basically just continues to say, you're all doomed. You need to leave. You're all doomed. And he just rides off on his little bike. And they're like, okay, that was weird. And then they go on about their day. So then the counselors are trying to get dinner ready. And they kind of like mention Annie, like, oh, too bad. She was supposed to be a really good cook. And then
I don't know how anyone would have known that. I don't know if they had like a letter chain or like phone calls before that, but
yeah,
Annie doesn't show up to the camp.
Yeah, and so the light bulb wasn't working. So Jack, Kevin Bacon, says he knows how to use the generator because Steve showed him. And then God's like, all that manly talk. I'm like, somebody literally just taught him. Really? I just hate Ned. So we get a point of view of Ned, which I thought was the killer. And Jack and Marcy are like running around and like dancing on a log together. So we're at like a different. And then Ned walks off, like walking on a pipe. I think he's jealous and sees somebody like go into one of the cabins, and he follows them like an idiot. And we don't see Ned again for a while.
But we will see him again.
Yep. But he won't be talking as much, thankfully.
Yeah, honestly, Mrs. Voorhees is doing us all a favor.
I'm like, thank God he was the first one to go. Because, I mean, other than Annie. Yeah, fucking Ned. She's not a girl's girl for taking Kevin, though. It's messed up. So we cut back to Marcy and Jack, who are talking about storms because it's like thundering and it's getting ready to rain. And she mentions her dream, how rain turns to blood. And he's solely listening to her to get lucky. Like, he does not care.
Yeah, they are dating. Like, they arrived together. Like, they have an established relationship. Ones that means more than Alice and Steve.
True.
But they go back to the cabin and they look around and Ned is not in there. Wink, wink. And then they break the first rule for horror movies. They fuck.
Also, side note, this scene is called Cabin Fever. Let's go. So we have made it to Cabin Fever, where Jack and Marshy? Okay, cool. Jack and Marcy steam up the cabin a little bit while the big storms are brewing. Which I just want to say, I feel like in these older movies, especially, everybody has white underwear and it's like crispy white. So it's like they specifically gave these actors brand new underwear. Just saying. Anyway, regardless, the other counselors are in the main cabin playing guitar and eating. And Brenda decides that they're going to play strip Monopoly to spice things up a little bit. And while they're doing all that, Jack and Marcy are doing their thing. And the camera pans up and shows Ned is dead on top of the bunk up.
Yeah.
And you can see a little bit of like blood drops on their pillow as well, but I mean, like, it's dark. I can't see that. But they finish. Marcy has to go pee, so she grabs a raincoat, leaving Jack all by his lonesome, which is the key to this movie, is just don't be alone. Literally, she only kills people when they are alone.
Well, because, spoiler alert, she's a fucking old lady, and if there were two people on her, game over. No franchise.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, she fucked up in the end because, there's only one person left. Let me, like, give the element of surprise away. Like, get rid of the element of surprise, really. And she can't handle her crazy. We'll get to that. But Alice, Bill, and Brenda are still playing Monopoly during all of this. And then Jack lights up his weed when a drop of blood hits him on the forehead. And as he's like, what the fuck is this? An arrow comes from underneath the bed, like through his throat. and he did.
It's great special effects. Thank you, Tom Savini, for making this movie somewhat palatable. So Marcy's in the little outhouse. She pees. Good for her. No UTIs here. Then she hears something, thinking it might be Jack, but nothing comes around. And Katrina made a note about this. So the first sink that she tries to use, like, doesn't really work, but she doesn't just move over to the next sink like a normal person would. She like bends down and like tightens up the pipe or does something to make it work. So I mean, good for her. You know,
she turns the water on.
Yeah, she will overcome her challenges, but I would not do that.
Which is funny because like I wouldn't think anything of it, but there was I don't think it was you. Somebody's toilet was flooding at one point.
It was not mine.
Okay,
it might have been clear. It wasn't mine.
It might have been. I don't know. One of my friends was like, "Oh my god, my toilet is flooding," and I'm like, "Turn the water off to your toilet." And they're like, "I don't know how to do that." So I just sent them a photo of what it looks like, and you just bloop, and the water stops, and they're like, "Oh my god." It'd been like running for like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, bro, turn the water off. But I get it. It's not.
I do know how to do that.
See.
But it was not me that this was happening to.
That's fair. So Marcy's just having a good old time by herself doing impressions in the mirror. And when she goes to check out the showers, because she kind of like hears rustling, she doesn't see anything. So when she turns back around, she gets the good old X in la cabeza, which is her head.
Right to the face. And she turns around, sees something, screams, and then murked. So I like
There's really no talking. Which I guess
kill.
Which I guess is like taken throughout the other movies because Jason doesn't talk. Which I've read. I haven't seen them. But that's normal for a horror movie.
He doesn't even get the hockey mask. He doesn't even get the hockey mask until movie 3. So
what?
These movies don't. They're just slashers.
They're movies.
They are. Yeah, sure. Let's go. Yeah. So Marcy's dead, and then we go back to the Monopoly. Alice is obviously winning because she has not taken anything off yet, and Brenda is in her virginal white bra and underwear, but she's playing very suggestively, and I don't care. Brenda, she's hot, so I'm fine.
She is
fine with it. But then she remembers that her windows are open, so she just puts on like a slicker and boots over her underwear and runs to go close them.
There's no children here yet, so that's fine. But I would imagine that would be cold. So we cut over to Steve, who's just at a diner flirting with like the older waitress lady. And then he decides, I gotta head back to camp because I got 6 newbies. I'm like, oh, maybe, I don't know if he was getting supplies because he did have a trailer. Anyway, he decides he's gonna leave and he's gonna head back. Brenda is getting ready for bed and she's brushing her teeth, and we see like a hand pull a shower curtain back, but she never sees anything. And she just heads back to her cabin. And then Steve breaks down because why not? I'm like, do all cars stop working in the rain? Because that's what I feel like. I'm like, these cars should not be breaking down because of rain.
Yeah, his Jeep, his all-terrain vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, a police officer finds him because why wouldn't they? And offers him a lift to camp. And I'm just gonna finish like Steve's little part and then go back because the back and forth. Sorry. So Steve gets in the cop car. They get almost to the campsite basically, and then the cop has to like skedaddle because somebody had a wreck and the rain was kind of stopping. So Steve's like, all right, I'll just walk the rest of the way. Don't do it because now you're alone.
Fast and loose with like all of this.
Yeah.
But can anybody guess what happens to Steve?
Or should I say That's what happens to him. He gets
He's dead.
Yeah.
So then we go back to Brenda. She's laying down to read in her cabin, and then she hears a little boy's voice yelling out, like, help me. And at first, she's just ignoring it. But then you hear it again. And what do we do when we hear a strange noise? We go investigate. So I totally agree with Katrina's notes. It's like, fuck them kids. One, because fuck them kids. But two, also, why would there be any kids? The kids aren't supposed to be at the camp for like a week or something. So I don't know. She went and investigated a strange noise. She's breaking the rules. But the voice leads her to an archery range where she was before with Ned. And as to Katrina's point earlier, where there's foreshadowing, bow and arrow, Katniss Everdeen right through the throat. Boom. Oh.
Yeah. Well, she turns like the light on her. Because at first I was like, how's she going to do this in the dark? And then like she turns on the archery lights and blinds her basically. So she has no idea. And I'm like, oh, that's how she does it.
Mrs. Voorhees turns on the lights.
Yes. And which is kind of like a technique that she uses, because that's kind of what she did to Steve, is she basically flashed a light in his face so he couldn't see her up until like the stabby. So
yeah,
disorient and stab is kind of what she's doing.
Yeah, we're not being super descriptive because it doesn't matter. So Brenda's dead, Ned's dead, Jack and Marcy are dead, Steve is dead. So there's only Bill and Alice left. Alice is still in the little game room. Bill comes back in because he had to like go to the bathroom or he had to go away, check his window. I don't know. Bill left, but now he's back. Alice says that she heard a scream. It might have sounded like Brenda. And then they see that the archery lights are on and they decide to go investigate together, which for this movie's logic makes the most sense out of anything that's happened.
Well, and so they end up in Brenda's cabin, and they were looking for Brenda, and what do they find? A bloody axe in her bed. Now, this is the point where I'm like, okay, I want to leave now. But I get that they're trying to find their friends because they don't know that anybody's dead yet. So Alice and Bill start running around trying to look for the rest of the counselors, and Alice wants to call somebody. And I'm thankful that Bill did not like gaslight her and be like, it's okay. Like, no, it's not, because they literally break into the camp office, like break the glass in the door. But the phone lines have been cut because why wouldn't they be? So they try to go to, I think it's Ned's truck, maybe. The truck from the original, like the beginning. They try to start it and it won't start. And she was like, what's wrong? He's like, it's wet. I don't know. The truck should not. Anyway, we've already talked about this. So I'm like, okay, so cars just don't work in the rain. Whatever. And we see like a point of view like creeping up on the generator. And then guess what? No more electricity. And it makes sense because Mrs. Voorhees, as we'll find out later, worked at the camp as like a cook. So like she knows this camp. She's probably going to know how to use the generator. She's going to know how to do all these things. So like it makes sense that she would know how to do these. But Bill is, I don't know. I just put a note here. I'm like, the scene of Bill trying to light the lanterns went on for like way too long. I mean, just light it and go, bro. But they decide to split up. You found a bloody axe and the phone lines are cut. So Alice just takes a nap on the couch while Bill goes to fix the generator.
Because that makes the most sense.
Horror movie logic. Whatever. I titled this next scene Kill Bill.
Good job.
So, thank you. Bill is checking like the gas in the generator to see if it ran out. And we get a point of view of like sneaking up behind him. But he doesn't see anybody. He's just kind of doing his thing. And Alice screams, Bill! And wakes up and just makes coffee. Because she's like, oh, it's fine. So she decides she's going to go look for him and gets her poncho. And we never see Bill die. But when Alice goes to the generator room, and it's like, I don't know, and closes the door, Bill is literally like up on the door, hanging, not hanging, but like stuck to the door, levitating with arrows, which was impressive, honestly.
Good for Mrs. Voorhees. It's because,
I'm gonna need her to drop the workout routine.
Yeah, in the first movie, because it's Mrs. Voorhees doing the kills, it's not very supernatural the same way that Jason kind of is with like the regenerations and things like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Bill's a whole ass man, and Mrs. Voorhees is an old lady. So
she's a whole ass woman, old lady.
that mama bear energy, I guess, she got that man up hanging on the door. So
she's got crazy person mixed with mama bear energy. That's this. She's got crazy lady mama bear energy strength.
Side note, bag agent, search efforts to locate your item are still underway. We sincerely regret this inconvenience. Southwest Airlines. Stop.
2 more days. So we find out if we ever get a break. I titled this next scene, Finally, Girl.
I know, it's so good.
Ugh. So now Alice is basically the last girl standing. She's our final girl. And that's basically the rest of the movie. We've gone this whole movie and nobody's found any dead bodies until like right now. So I haven't felt any true tension, like, ooh, you know, because I'm like, it's just like, ooh, stab at this point. But Alice is busy she goes back to the cabin and she's trying to like block the door and the windows and she's crying. And I'm in her nose, like, we love a multitasking queen. Like, have your breakdown while you barricade yourself in. Good job.
I support it.
And she calms herself down with a bat and a lantern and a fork. Like, one thing at a time, woman. Like, either have a bat or a fork. You can't do both.
Okay, you were getting on her for multitasking, but now she has 2 weapons and you're mad at her. Pick a side.
I mean, fair. And so this is the scene that Rachel mentioned earlier where Brenda's body is thrown through the window. And I'm like, good for Mrs. Voorhees, because I could not.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom Savini, for putting on a white nightgown and flailing through sugar glass.
So she tries to run away and her jacket gets caught, which I can't tell if that was accidental or planned because it looks like an accident.
Well, it's always like when you're super stressed out or pissed off and you're just walking from one room to the next and like your belt loop gets caught on the fucking door handle.
They were real for that, yeah. The rage.
Truly, it's like, what? So there we are. But Alice runs out. She's outside of all the cabins and everything. And then a Jeep pulls up. She assumes it's Steve. And she runs up to it and enter Katrina's really good scene title.
This scene is called I'm Sorry, Mrs. Voorhees. Ooh, I am for real. Never meant to kill your son. And so, anyway.
Yeah, so Alice runs into Mrs. Voorhees and she's exclaiming, he's dead, she's dead, they're all dead. And she's playing the pronoun game, which I hate. But Mrs. Voorhees is just being like, well, you need to calm down. I can't help you if you don't calm down. I'll take care of you. But in a way that's very like, because if I went up screaming to any woman that people were dead, I would hope that they would have a reaction at all. Not this. So yeah. First clue.
And that's something that, like, when we were on our vacation, I was like, none of these people have a sense of urgency. And I'm like, in this moment, if you don't have a lick of urgency, like, get the fuck out of my way. Because I gotta go. And I just thought about this, but, like, that whole scene, the Marcy's dead body was in the Jeep. So, like, she couldn't have gotten in the car without being like, oh, shit, that's a dead body.
Right.
So I'm like, oh. But she's like, I'm not afraid. show me. Let's go inside. And then we get the whole like villain origin story because she starts to lose. Mrs. Voorhees starts losing her like front, and she's
Yeah, it's they go back in the little like Rex Hall space. Then Mrs. Voorhees starts talking about the horrible things that happened at the camp, and then she reveals that it was her son, Jason, who was the boy that had drowned a year before the killings in the first scene. And now she's blaming every counselor of that camp ever that you were the one who let my boy drown because you were getting your rocks off, you were doing this, it's your fault, you let him drown. And Alice is like, what the hell? But she does take a moment to be smart. Alice grabs the fire poker because the fire poker is the primo weapon in horror movies, so shout out When a Stranger Calls. And she whacks Mrs. Voorhees. Mrs. Voorhees falls on the couch. Alice whacks her again, but then runs out. And unlike Jill Johnson, she did not stab her in any way.
or keep running.
Well, she runs out to the Jeep, like Katrina said, finds Marcy's body, and then that scares her. So she obviously knows Mrs. Voorhees is behind everything right now, but it's just, another body. It's this sense of, oh, I'm like really alone because she found Bill, she sees Marcy, now Steve's body like falls upside down out of nowhere and scares her.
Yeah.
Mrs. Voorhees starts doing her little voice like Jason is living inside her head. So like I know I said like it's not supernatural, but I would say that this is not supernatural. I think this is just like crazy pants lady.
Mental illness, isn't it?
Whoa, 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 whoa. You cannot conflate mental illness in this way because I would not do this.
She had a very big trauma, and this is her reaction to it. She hears Jason and also speaks Jason, I guess, because he's like, kill her, mommy, kill her.
I love going up to my mom and saying stuff like that.
That's so creepy. I'd punch a child even if my child is grown, I'd be like, no, don't do this.
She thinks I'm so weird, and she's not wrong. But I'm just like, kill her, mommy. I bet she regrets having me.
All I can say though is like, as weird as I am, my mother is equally or more weird, so she cannot judge me for things because it's her fault. It's literally my mother's fault the way that I am.
No, like I had a sleepover with Katrina's mom because you guys were just and I'm like, no, tired. We're gonna stay out here and watch movies and talk and do whatever. We're crazy. But anyway, back to Alice. She runs into another like storage unit, finds a bunch of guns, and she can't get ammo because it's locked up.
You skipped her double back.
No, double back is next.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's in your notes next.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where's the double bag?
In the next scene.
Okay, sorry. Go on.
Don't fuck with me about a double back. I know everything about a double back. Alice is trying to get the ammo out, but it's all locked up, which is good. But for all the things that happen in this movie, now the bullets are locked up.
Right.
Anyway, Mrs. Voorhees has run into the little storage unit, and Alice like gets down on the ground like a little sniper stance. And the illusion of her holding the gun is enough, at least. She hits Mrs. Voorhees with the gun, and then they start like fighting and like throwing random things at each other, but it's a very
ineffective.
It's ineffective. It's odd. There's no tension in this fight scene, but Mrs. Voorhees, Katrina made a note, her pimp hand is strong because she slaps Alice in the face, but then Alice gives her a little cunt punch. So then she can get out. The best thing that you can do in a horror movie. She doubles back. So she runs out, and then she hides somewhere where she's already been, and she sees Mrs. Voorhees like keep running forward. And this is why we double back, guys, even if we're just buying time. But I will say it was smart. So about time. And Katrina named the scene "Get Gone, Girl." So get gone, gone, girl. It works on all the levels for me. Alice runs back to the main cabin, like rec hall area, but then she turns out the lights, which is
Stupid.
like, you got to keep everything the same to not alert your person. You were so smart with the double bag. What are we doing?
It's literally like flashing the lights to be like, I'm over here. I'm right here. Don't do that.
We were rooting for you. We were all rooting. So she hides in the kitchen pantry where she had found Ralph before. Mrs. Voorhees tracks her down in there, and then she breaks down the door, and we have a little tangled moment where Alice uses the cast iron pan and whacks Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah, in a knife fight, just bring a cast iron pan and you will win probably almost every time. You just make sure that you don't get one that's too heavy and you can swing it fast enough. That's all I gotta say about that. So after the little "here's Johnny" entangled moment, we Alice runs out, and because Mrs. Voorhees is knocked out, which you should double tap if it's a crazed murderer.
Well, and she had the cast iron skillet, so she could have just demolished her.
Keep on a whacking.
I mean, honestly, with those pans, like a few hits to the head and she would be dead. It would not even have taken that much effort, especially considering the way that Alice is going to kill her anyway.
Right, because that's better.
Cast iron pan, path of least resistance, honestly.
So Alice decides, let me run to the lake and have a Mulan moment and stare at myself, thinking, who is that girl?
I see. Staring right back at me. When will my reflection show
Mrs. Voorhees in my background? So, because of the way the moon is and the lighting and the reflection, she sees Mrs. Voorhees come up behind her and she grabs an oar to block the machete, but like breaks the oar in half, and they have another fight scene and they're struggling, they're strangling, there's all kinds of things. And then finally Alice gets her off.
That's what she said.
We get a slow-mo of Alice grabbing the machete, running at Mrs. Voorhees, and just slicing her head straight off like a vampire.
Yeah, and you can see like the spinal column, like in the body stump, like the blood and organs and stuff like that.
I really liked.
It's pretty good. Tom Savini, thank you.
My favorite part of that was the hands still trying to like grab where the head was. Like as she's falling, she's like, "Where's it go?" Like, oh my god, that's kind of funny. But it's like
hocus pocus energy.
Yeah, the zombie. Yes. So basically, this is the end. Why she chooses to get into a canoe and just float out to the middle of the lake, I will never understand. Maybe it was like, no one can get me here. I don't know.
I would not give the movie that much credit. I would just say that it is really cinematic when the sun rises and these beautiful fall trees are abloom, and we have the music and the shot like panning up to the canoe, and Alice is just leaning over it, dangling her little fingers in the water, which I would never do.
Watch out. Better watch out for those snapping turtles.
Yeah. So that is not what she has to be worried about, because she does wake up a little bit and she's looking around at this peaceful, serene campground where the threat has been tranquilized. And then we get like burn victim, soaking wet zombie little boy Jason lurching out of the lake to grab Alice to tip the canoe over and bring her down to the hellscape that his soul is in. Psych! Alice wakes up in the hospital and it was all a dream.
Classic. So
Literally classic, but
yeah. She wakes up in the hospital. Everything's okay. It's all over. That's what they all say. And she asks, like, are they really dead? And they were like, oh, well, we thought you were dead when we pulled you out of the lake. So that means she was actually in the water at one point. And she asked about the little boy. Was he alive or dead? And I don't know if it was the police. I think it was the cop said, well, we didn't find a little boy. And she goes, then he's still alive. Such a powerful deduction for her at this point. Honestly, she's on a lot of drugs.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that she has not had her trauma. Like, that was very intense. It's a really great ending.
Mm-hmm.
I just, because you just don't care about anybody at all, really, through the whole series. So it's hard to connect. Like, they're just slashers. They're very easy. And I know that me going through all this, like, I like Friday the 13th. I enjoy myself while I watch it, but it's just, if we're going to analyze it, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Right. It did, like, I feel that Friday the 13th, you know, set some of the, like, the rules to horror as, you know, the, like, oh, the fake out ending scene of they're actually in the hospital, because that happens a lot. The, you know, twist of who the killer is, it don't have sex or you're gonna die type stuff. Yeah. So I mean it's a classic horror movie, as we all know, and it has a franchise to it, so
we can
it had success
for its contributions to the genre and then move on now. Mm-hmm. So Adrienne King, she plays Alice, our final girl. She is in Friday the 13th too. She also, I think I told you about this book, The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Mm-hmm. Have I told you about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the book is about these women who survived their traumas. Like, they were their final girls in their own whatevers. And then their stories were the ones that were fictionalized to become the book version, but it's telling us, the reader, like, it's Halloween, Friday the 13th, sleigh bells, or a bunch of them, Scream. So, like, that there was, like, a ghost killer, aka Ghostface. So, like, it's what we know as the movies. It was these fictional characters, real life stories that were made into movies in the book world. But that's, like, our connection. But I just bring that up because Adrienne King is the audiobook narrator for that. I didn't listen to the audiobook. My friend did. But she said that it was really hard because she could tell, like, the voice was super old. And it didn't, like, make sense with the character and everything. And then I looked it up and I saw the name and I was like, wait a minute, isn't that? And I'm like, well, that's why it's that person. And I guess it sucks that it wasn't that good of an audiobook, because that really can make or break your experience. But it is cool that, you know, the final girl is narrating a book about final girls. Like, that's just like cool. She probably cost a lot less than Jamie Lee Curtis. I would say that Jamie Lee Curtis is probably the most famous final girl, wouldn't you say?
I feel like she's like the finalist girl. Like, there's no finaler than Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, I agree. Adrienne King, you know, Friday the 13th, I would still say, you know, we made fun of it, but we got there, and Alice is like a fucking badass character in the end. So I'm down for that. I did forget to mention on the When a Stranger Calls episode, the podcast that shall not be named, that I don't like because of what they said about When a Stranger Calls. I did listen to one of their other episodes forever ago, but it was like a final girl, like, March Madness thing. And their two favorite final girls were Jill Johnson and Sydney Prescott from Scream. So I agreed with a lot of their opinions that way. And then ultimately their winner was Sydney Prescott for the best final girl. And I would agree with them on that. Okay, you know what? I'll say that. Sydney Prescott is a better final girl than Jamie Lee Curtis, but I think Jamie Lee Curtis is more famous than Neve Campbell. So
I'd say that's fair. If I know Jamie Lee Curtis, then obviously she's more famous because I don't know people, period.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Friday the 13th?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you wanted to, we could talk about how, if we want to relate this movie in terms of like as women, like the mother who babies the son and takes on all his responsibilities and problems herself and just does everything for him.
Yeah, I mean, but it's awful that the counselors at the time were so busy with their other activities that a boy died. That's horrible.
Right.
And it's not a bad motivation for revenge. It's just, I would say it's the way the movie goes about this revenge story. It is.
Yeah. She's just killing anybody who's a counselor and is at Camp Crystal Lake. You're dead. Don't matter. Like, she does not discriminate anymore.
Well, and then we get Jason.
Other than that, no.
Friday the 13th, 2 and 3 are at Camp Crystal Lake. And then the 4th one is like there, but also somewhere else. And then I have not seen them, but then there's like Jason in space and then Jason in Manhattan. So like there's all these other places. So like the franchise really just becomes its own thing. And that's fine and that's cool. I will watch them maybe someday, but also maybe I won't.
Our next movie is going to come out for Halloween. And it's Halloween. Yay. With Jamie Lee Curtis, our final girl.
Our finalist girl.
Our final girl's first final girl movie, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, so we're going to just do the original?
If you want to. We could do Halloween. We could do, like, any of them, honestly.
See, and that's another thing. Like,
it will be a Halloween movie.
So for Friday the 13th, I've seen the original, like, up to, like, 5 or 6, I can't remember. And I've seen the 2009 remake, but I haven't seen all of them. Same thing with Halloween. I've seen Halloween 1 and 2. I turned off the first Rob Zombie one because of animals, so I have nothing to do with that. And then I've seen the new Halloween and Halloween Kills. I haven't even seen Halloween Ends. So maybe we can do like what we did with When a Stranger Calls, is like compare a little bit.
There we go.
So
we will see you on the next one, and thank you so much for listening, and we hope you loved it.
Yeah, this is our shortest episode ever, so
good for us.
Yeah, good for us, good for you. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope that you enjoyed our episode, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Find us on Twitter or Instagram to request a movie or even just to discuss your thoughts at Booze and Boobs. Or send us an email, boozeandboobs@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we're working on turning this into a thing. So if you can please follow us on Patreon, our account there is Booze and Boobs also.
And what are some of the benefits to joining our Patreon?
Oh, Katrina, I am so glad that you asked. As a patron, you will get early release episodes, bloopers, mini episodes where we showcase scenes from the movies that we're talking about, or just conversations that we're having that we had to cut from our recording.
All that and more. And they're fun tiers. You can be an A cup, a C cup, or you can join the Triple D Plus group like us.
We truly appreciate your support, and we look forward to growing our following to create more content for listeners like you.
So we'll see you next time. Or else.
Yeah, let's end it with a threat.